Nebula has been forced to sign a sales contract. Good news. The system is handsome and comes with a gold finger, many of them. Bad news. Goldfinger wants to draw blind boxes. Will you die if you don't achieve your goals? It's very unfortunate. Nebula's eyes are inexplicable, interesting. Am I a money-scattering boy? Nebula. Why is my striped hospital uniform missing? System Chenyu. Our mission as tycoons is to have the freshness and purity of luxury, and to use the feces of luxury to sprinkle every corner of the world. System Chenyu took a deep breath. Follow me and shout, we are fresh and proud, to make the world full of pride. Nebula shouted along. Let the world be filled with pride. Nebula holding a golden brick. Just cross off this bad silver directly, right? System Chenyu. Please consider the core values of the task and wait for me to make changes. Try using smaller gold bricks. Novel keyword. Surprise. After binding to the Tycoon system, I earned no pop-ups and was pleasantly surprised. After binding to the Tycoon system, I made a profit by flipping through the entire TXT collection for download. Surprise. After binding to the Tycoon system, I earned money by flipping through the latest chapters to read. Chapter 1. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 1 is it bound to the Little Fresh Rich system. System binding. Xinyan watched helplessly as her name was automatically signed on a contract and her fingerprints were pressed. As soon as it turned dark and bright in front of her, she moved to a different place. Cold. This is the first feeling of the nebula. The only small window on the wall next to it, emitting dim yellow sunlight. Nebula is the only way to see clearly. This is a small rundown room. A low roof, mottled earth walls, and cement floor. Nebula stands in the sunlight, unable to block the coolness of the surrounding air. The active dust in the sunshine air drills straight into the human nose. Nebula's nose is itchy. She originally wore a blue and white striped hospital uniform with the logo Sunshine Mental Hospital, but now she is wearing a regular sports school uniform. In the center of the room, there stood a tall and thin man in front of her. The man's T-dot shirt and pants were half hidden in the darkness, with only those eyes shining with malicious evil light, exceptionally prominent in the dimness. The tall and thin man's eyes measured the girl's circumference again, licked his lips, and looked provocative. Why are you so impolite? Do you need me to teach you how to use it? Azu. The girl, who originally had a fierce and guarded face, now had tears in her eyes and instantly transformed from a cat with exposed claws to a trembling lamb. Ha ha ha. Come on, I'll teach you. The tall and thin man laughed and pointed to the side of the room. Do you see that stool on the ground? You go over and pick it up. Xinyan rubbed his nose and turned his head to look. Upon hearing the words, he lifted his head and walked over. Yes, yes, pick it up and walk back. Xinyan walked back with each word and action, dragging a broken stool half the height of her, leaving 2 long marks on the thick and dusty concrete floor. Seeing the girl being so obedient, the tall and thin man laughed even more recklessly. He pointed his hand at his head and continued to encourage, fight like this, come on, make it hard, ha ha ha. The tall and thin man laughed and didn't even pay attention to the girl. A little girl, he can hold down with one hand, but he can do whatever he wants. He is not afraid at all. The tall and thin man lowered his head and took out his phone, then clicked on the camera function. You'd better take the initiative and take off your clothes. Otherwise. Bang. The broken stool tore through the air and hit the thin and tall man's head, instantly turning into pieces of wood, splitting into pieces. His smile froze on his face, and he fell to the ground with force. The tall and thin man tried to lift his head, only to see the girl looking down at him, with the corners of her mouth gradually curling up, revealing a sweet smile. The girl's smile was innocent and pure, with a hint of innocence and immaturity, like a child tidying up their toys according to their parents and waiting for their praise. In an instant, the tall and thin man felt a chill in his back, as if he had seen the demon smile. All his previous contemptuous thoughts have disappeared, and now he just wants to leave this strange girl as soon as possible. The tall and thin man trembled all over, his limbs constantly exerting force, wanting to get up. Without receiving any praise, Nebula pouted and thought for a moment before coming to the conclusion, "You are bad, Silver." Speaking of Chenyu, he bent down and picked up the largest piece of wood at his feet, quickly striking the thin and tall man's head. Bang! The wood was completely broken into pieces. The tall and thin man's body twitched a few times and stopped moving. Before he fainted, the demon's whispers echoed in his ears. Kicked him and saw him completely unconscious. Nebula searched him and skillfully found a box of cigarettes, a box of matches, and a string of keys. A must-have skill for patience, the Nebula is full of points. Chenyu walked towards the only door, picked up the man's phone on the ground, picked up his backpack, and opened the door with the key. The hot wind hit and instantly dispelled the coldness around him. This is a small low house in an old alley, which is now empty. Chenyu took 2 steps outside and suddenly stopped. She changed direction and targeted the gas tank outside the house next to her. Bad Silver must be completely eradicated. Nebula reached out and was about to drag away the gas cylinder on the ground. Warning, warning. Host's current behavior affects task completion, please dispel this idea. Nebula. There is someone at the entrance of the alley, she saw it after the mechanical sound, another ethereal sound sounded like a star, and a refreshing breeze brushed against the face. It sounds really nice, Nebula likes this sound. Little brother, who are you? I am System Chenyu, your work partner. Chenyu looked at the corner of his clothes exposed at the entrance of the alley, released the gas cylinder he had pulled up, and looked at the matchbox in his hand with reluctance, asking, "Can't I use it again when I'm far away?" At present, it seems that it is not conducive to completing the task. Please use it again next time. Chenyu's words made sense. Chenyu nodded and regretfully put the matchbox in his pocket. Newcomer task work data transmission in progress, the mechanical sound fell, and there was a lot of information in the Nebula's brain. The tool man Xia Chenyu exchanged identities with the female lead when he was young. From a wealthy daughter to a rural woman. The restoration of identity, thought to be the beginning of happiness, is the path to hell. Due to different living environments since childhood, Xia Chenyu and the Zhou family are completely out of place. The Zhou family has many rules and dislikes Xia Shenyun's lack of rules, which will only bring shame to them. A graceful and excellent female lead is their proud and precious daughter. The younger brother of the Zhou family despised Xia Chenyu and publicly referred to her as a domestic servant. Xia Chenyu was once a treasure held in the hands of the Xia family's parents, and was the envy of all the girls in the nearby village. The originally cheerful and sunny personality in the Zhou family is prone to depression. Later, she met the villainous man Han Yunlong, who thought he was sunshine but was a devil disguised in human skin. Approaching Xia Chenyu is just to get a piece of land belonging to the Zhou family under her name. After achieving the goal, he turned his face mercilessly and scattered a large number of fruit photos of Xia Chenyu. Xia Chenyu completely collapsed and was deceived into going to a mental hospital. The Zhou family felt embarrassed and didn't show their faces. Only the Xia couple received the news that they had been driving overnight on a rainy day and died in a car accident on the way. My best friend Zhu Rennan came to see her and told her that she had designed everything because of jealousy. On that day, Xia Chenyu committed suicide. Afterwards, the antagonists Han Yunlong and Zhu Rennan rose up, becoming stepping stones on the success path of the female lead. Xia Chenyu is the tool man in the world story. Where to move, where to do the most tool man's work, but live the most miserable life, and the story scenes are even less pitiful. Task. Change the fate of tool people. Timely treatment of Xia's father, Xia's father and mother have a happy and healthy life. Hidden task. 1. Smash, small font. Self-judgment. 2. Become a well-rounded and outstanding young lady. The task is the original owner's most desired wish to complete. Hidden tasks are detected by the system, and there will be additional rewards upon completion. There is a prompt for the first hidden task, and you need to explore it yourself in the future. Listening to the explanation of the pleasant voice in his ear, Nebula nodded to show understanding. Now you can use your golden finger to complete tasks. Nebula puzzled. What is the golden finger? Newcomers and new books, welcome everyone's support. The fictional world is set to be humorous, with random names. Do not compare funny elements with names. If you like it, please vote for it more often to receive wealth and good luck. I don't like to take a second look. I wish you a happy smile and become the proudest kid. The female protagonist in the original story only represents people with the aura of a female protagonist. There are various situations, such as good people, bad people, not humans, etc., which is interesting. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 2. Chenyu cleared his throat. Dudu. He patted the microphone in his hand. Dear colleagues, Nebula. Here. Chenyu's voice rose twice. Our little fresh tycoon system is different from those seductive sluts. Let's give away a massive amount of gold fingers at the beginning. A job with such good benefits is hard to come by. Should it be rare, Nebula? It should be. You are the luckiest girl of the year. Our mission as tycoons is to have the freshness and purity of luxury, and to use the waste of luxury to sprinkle every corner of the world. Follow me and shout, we are fresh and proud, to make the world full of pride. Nebula felt like the whole person was boiling and raised his hand to shout, let the world be filled with pride. Speak up, to make the world full of pride. Great, applause. Starry Cloud reached out and slapped hard together, her little face flushed and excited. Quack, quack, quack. Please refer to the workbook. The mechanical sound fell, and Nebula had an additional book in his hand, with a few big characters written on it. It was a small and fresh work manual for the wealthy system, which you deserve to have. The Nebula quickly opened, with work precautions written on it. She looked back and saw that the content behind was being written word by word. It's really fresh and not artificial. The Nebula is even more excited, with sparkling eyes. Each world can draw a golden finger blind box once, and the item is the most luxurious thing in the world. Small font. The how judgment is exclusively measured by the system. The quantity is 1 mountain, and there are additional functions that are continuously increasing. The only downside is that the blind box has duplicates or voids, limited space for storing gold finger items, and the items are filled with space, causing staff to suffocate and die. Use the items as soon as possible, while adhering to conditions of equal and meaningful value. The summary of work is, money scattering boy. Those who are in danger of life. The Nebula closed its manual and hesitated, will it suffocate and die? Chenyu coughed and said, as long as you complete the task, you can double and expand the space. And Chenyu quickly flipped through the script manual of XX. Excitement instantly replaced the hesitation on the Nebula's face. It's really interesting. A thought flashed through the hands of Nebula, and the little fresh rich system workbook disappeared in an instant. Nebula immediately sensed a space, surrounded by a circle of nothingness. Extract blind boxes. Immediately, a row of cute milk boxes appeared in front of the Nebula, with a list of items below. Gold and silver, real estate, mountains and forests, firearms, I am the strongest, rare and precious, the gaze of light, I am not delicious, are you hungry? In a flash, there was no time to see the Nebula, and the things behind seemed to be getting more and more strange. Is this a covert operation? But she has no evidence. Choose any Nebula you like. Congratulations on obtaining gold. The next moment, a medium-sized golden mountain appeared in the space, and under the gaze of the Nebula, it grew taller. Nebula feels a bit uncomfortable breathing. I specifically chose a smaller one for you. Chenyu's tone was full of gratitude. Let's start our journey. Our goal is the Starry Sea. Xingyun walked towards the entrance of the alley, and as she walked, her expression, gaze, and posture gradually approached Xia Xingyun. When she turns the alley, she becomes Xia Xingyun, a 15-year-old girl who is sunny and occasionally a bit silly. Sister, can you do me a favor? Xingyun scratched his head awkwardly, revealing a small white tooth. The woman standing on this side of the alley, looking at the Nebula without saying a word, smoked on her own. Just now she saw the little girl standing there alone, not knowing what to do, strange. Women doing some special color business here know the truth that it's better to do less than to do more. Besides, she lives like a ghost fire herself. Who can she help? Perhaps it's a woman's sixth sense, she always thinks this girl is a bit strange. Xingyun continued to smile and reached out his hand, which held a golden yellow croaker. Sister, can you do me a favor? Her tone was full of coaxing, like a witch holding a poisonous apple. But as long as the poisonous apple is made of gold, women will definitely take it over. The woman quickly grabbed the cigarette, picked up the small yellow croaker, looked at the code on the fish, and then tossed the weight, making a fortune. Little sister, what do you want me to do? She asked obsequiously, ignoring the hot hand caused by the cigarette falling off. Xingyun smiled with a sunny expression, gesturing for the woman to lower her head and approach her ear. The woman first had a strange expression on her face, then nodded repeatedly. Don't worry, I am familiar with this business and I guarantee to satisfy you. After finishing speaking, the woman flicked her hair, stepped on her high heels, took out her phone, and twisted her waist towards the small low room with the door open. Listening to the prompt sound of the system completing the task in my ear, the Nebula slowly left. In her past life, this sister also passed by, and the sound of footsteps saved Xia Xingyun. Otherwise, she would face more than just taking photos and recording videos. Completely meets the conditions for using the golden finger. She's really amazing. Nebula had just arrived at the roadside and a taxi happened to stop next to it. Nebula passed, the driver pointed to the sign and said, "Please use your mobile phone for payment." Nebula. She held a small yellow croaker in her hand and watched the taxi go further and further. Xia Xingyun's phone is bound to a bank card, which contains the meal expenses and pocket money given to her by her parents. On weekdays, she usually takes the bus and the 11th bus, but at the end of the month, she doesn't have any money to take a taxi. Nebula had no choice but to follow the memory and walk towards the nearest bus stop. Seeing the bus stop right ahead, Chenyu spoke up to remind her, there is a gold shop on the right side ahead. Upon hearing this, Xingyun immediately targeted Jindian. This gold shop has been around for some time, and as soon as it opens, it makes a piercing sound. The whole store is a bit dark and the lighting is not very good. The shop owner is an explosive-headed man in his 20s. He looked at the Nebula, not very big, perhaps curious to come and take a look. He was definitely not someone who could afford to buy gold. He looked up at the Nebula, lowered his head, and continued to brush his phone. Xingyun walked up to the counter and said, "I sell things." "What are you selling?" The explosive shopkeeper looked at his phone and instinctively asked. "This." The next moment, the dim shop lit up. The shop owner looked up and immediately picked up the small yellow croaker. Upon closer inspection, he asked suspiciously, "Can you make the decision? Are you really selling?" As he looked at the number on the small yellow croaker, the corner of his mouth cracked. With the recognition of the Nebula, the smile on the face of the shop owner lit up. "Oh my, little sister, you really have great vision. I'm telling you, this is the most innocent and honest gold shop on this street. This street has only one gold shop." Hearing Chenyu's roast, Xingyun also smiled. "How about this number? I'm telling you, there's no other place like me, such a high price. Before Chenyu could speak, a system prompt suddenly sounded in his ear. Not meeting the value of the item, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Most Proud Countryside 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The Most Proud Countryside 3. Nebula smiled and shook its head, and the shop owner suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. The premonition was fulfilled. He hates his intuition as a single dog. As the Nebula shook its head, the exploding shop owner gradually increased the price, and all the lit smiles on his face extinguished one by one. Finally, reaching a reasonable market price, Nebula nodded. At this moment, the owner of the explosive shop has nothing to understand. I thought it was bronze, but I didn't expect it to be a king. Taking out the electronic scale from under the counter, the shop owner couldn't help but ask, "How much do you sell?" This can be considered a professional question, a subconscious habit. How much more can a little girl like this sell yellow croaker when she sees her for the first time? The tycoons are either everywhere or there are tycoons, and they are definitely not the little girls who look like little dirt girls at first glance. Chenyu took his backpack and opened it. With the backpack, he took out the system to estimate the maximum number of small yellow croakers that Jinjian can purchase. The little golden mountain illuminated the entire store, and the exploding shop owner squinted his eyes and was completely stunned. What a tycoon! Stepping out of the gold shop, Nebula felt smooth breathing and even the air was fresh. I directly called a taxi on my phone and went home. The first task is that Xia's father was injured while doing farm work and delayed treatment, resulting in a limp leg. If it weren't for this, Xia Xingyun wouldn't have gone to the Zhou family, and the Xia family wouldn't have been afraid of affecting Xia Xingyun. They wouldn't dare to go see her even if they miss her on weekdays, so they should make more phone calls. I'm just afraid that the Zhou family won't like it and it will affect Xia Xingyun. Xia Xingyun was in a daze during that time due to the threat from the fruit photo video. Xia Xingyun has no memory of when Xia's father was injured. It is not included in the information either. Chenyu, when did Xia's father get injured? Xingyun tilted his head and looked at the scenery passing by outside the car window. Nebula and system are communication of consciousness, and the driver only thinks that she is the black sheep of which family. It's such a long road that I'm willing to spend money on taking a taxi. It will take about 3 days, and you need to handle it yourself. The information will become simpler and simpler in the future. The future will change and cannot rely on data. Nebula. The car quickly drove into a bustling shopping street. Nebula's eyes lit up and he said, "Driver, could you please stop by the roadside? I'll go buy something and come back soon." Seeing the driver's guard on his face, Xingyun showed him his student ID and said, "I left my backpack in the car. Can you help me check it?" The driver shook his head as he watched the Nebula leave. Quickly, Xingyun returned with a clothing bag and a large bag of fried chicken, and the whole car was filled with the aroma of fried chicken. "The fried chicken I brought to my parents is said to be very delicious," said Xingyun with a silly smile, making him an obedient and good child. The driver also smiled at her. What a filial child. What kind of stinky kid in his family. He only knows how to anger people. Xia Xingyun has a sunny personality and loves to talk. He quickly started chatting with the driver, and as time passed, he saw that he was approaching the village entrance. He got off the car early. Put the bag and fried chicken in the backpack, carry the backpack and walk home. Now she is Xia Xingyun, keep a low profile. I understand this. Nebula. At this moment, a message prompt sound of a woodpecker sounded. Xingyun was puzzled and took out the phone from his school uniform pocket. No information. Xingyun tilted his head and thought for a moment, then suddenly took out the thin and tall man's phone from his backpack, fiddled with it a few times, and quickly unlocked it. Nan Nan. Why haven't you heard from me for so long? Nan Nan. How is things going? Nan Nan. Our matter is settled, don't come to me again in the future. Nan Nan. Send me a copy of the things. It seems that Xia Xinyan's good friend is not very strict, and the internet name will not be changed. Do you think that no one will ever know about this, or are you fearless? Nebula curled its lips and quickly typed. Success. Crazy Sun video waiting for me to process and send it to you. Crazy Sun putting away his phone, Xinyan walked calmly on the muddy path with his ponytail, greeting the villagers chatting with him from time to time, and returned home with a cheerful expression on his face. Mom and Dad, I'm back. Yaya's back. Xia's mother immediately poked her head out of the kitchen. Go wash it up quickly. Dinner will take a while, you go watch TV first. Nebula squinted its eyes and reached out to catch a grass-woven ball. Young Xia, you have great skills. Xinyan looked at Xia's father in the courtyard along the sound and said, Excuse me. He threw the ball back. Xia's father caught the grass ball and looked at her with confusion. Why are you back so early today? I'm not on duty today, the road is smooth, and I didn't miss any time, said Xinyan as he changed his shoes. With the bright smile on Xinyan's face, Xia Fu knew what good things were going on with his daughter and asked her with a smile. I'll tell you when we have dinner later. Nebula looked mysterious and ran into the room. Xia's father angrily shouted, his mother, Yaya has a secret. The courtyard was filled with the laughter of Xia's father and mother. During dinner, Nebula presented fried chicken like a treasure. You little greedy cat, Xia's mother smiled and worried again in an instant. You just need to buy a chicken leg, why not buy a whole chicken? Xia's mother didn't blame in her tone, she was just used to frugality. They always get used to giving the best things to their daughter, and Xia Xinyan can eat chicken legs alone. It's impossible to eat so many extra meals. Xia's father nodded beside him and said, Do you still have enough pocket money? Of course I bought it back to eat with my parents. Xinyan sat on the chair. Didn't I lend Zhu Rennan money last time? She repaid me today. It's okay to eat it occasionally. Mom and Dad, hurry up and eat. It's still hot. Xia Xinyan has been obedient and sensible since childhood. Buying a whole fried chicken is also to show filial piety to them. The chicken legs that Xia's parents eat are all sweet. Xinyan swallowed the chicken in his mouth and said, Mom and Dad, I want to take a day off tomorrow. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Xia's parents looked at her with concern. Xinyan took a bite of his chicken leg and said, I met that thug after school today. Xia's father and mother had heard Xia Xinyan mention before that they were pestering Zhu Rennan outside the school for being a thug. Yaya, looking at the happy food, maybe she doesn't want them to worry and stay strong. Xia's mother quickly said, I'll take a day off for you soon. This was a plan made on Xinyan Road. Tomorrow is Friday, and then it happens to be the 6th. She will be at home all day, and she will know immediately if Xia Fu has something to do. Chenyu, if something is taken out without meaning, how long can it be left? As space grows, the longer the time, the longest is now 5 minutes. Xinyan smiled and took a big bite of the chicken leg. After finishing the meal, Xinyan handed Xia Fu a box of cigarettes. Where did you come from? Xia's father took it over in confusion. Xinyan looked proud and said, I picked it up on the way. Oh my, young Xia, you're amazing. This brand is pretty good, I'll go talk to Uncle Li for a while, said Xia Fu happily as he walked out. Xia Xinyan never told his parents a lie since he was young. The cigarette happened to be half a box, so they believed what Xia Xinyan said. Ringling. Nebula opened her phone and smiled. Little sister, the work is completed. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Most Proud Countryside Ya4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Most Proud Countryside Ya4. I went to do my homework. Xinyan quickly ran into his room with his phone and closed the door. Sitting on the desk and stool, Nebula eagerly clicked on her phone. The next moment, the screen lit up, and then a rectangular black ointment appeared, perfectly blocking the front of the phone. Nebula. She can't see anything. Nebula turned to look at the wall next to it. Xia Xingyun drew a height line on the wall and saw it very clearly. She turned back to look at her phone. The tightly fitted ointment was still in front of her, and she couldn't see anything. Chenyu spoke up at the right time and said, "Our little fresh Taheo system is a green system. Let's take a look." Nebula. The system actually comes with a mosaic function. She looked forward to it in vain. Negative review. This is not a mosaic, is it a plaster? As the words of the Nebula fell, the rectangular black ointment in front of her gradually turned into deep and shallow black chess pieces. The only thing that remained unchanged was that she still couldn't see anything. Nebula put down his phone and said, "How do I know the result like this?" The degree of mosaic has already indicated the results. Nebula. Okay. Since the pictures and videos are in place, let's send them to our best friend. It's impolite to keep her waiting for a long time. Nebula turned around and dug out the phone of a tall and thin man from his backpack. "Send, damn girl, where have you been? I haven't had enough food, what can't I do? If you have the ability, don't come back to me." The tall and thin middle-aged woman had a mean expression on her face, crossed her waist in the courtyard, scolded half of her salary before turning her head back into the room. Zhu Rennan sat in a corner behind a tree outside the courtyard, shaking her legs and playing with her phone, turning a deaf ear. She has been in a tense and excited state since returning home from school until now. As soon as she thought about Xia Xingyun's brilliant face and couldn't laugh anymore, she wanted to laugh. No matter how much her parents like her, she's still a broken shoe. Now her parents will only despise her, dislike her, perhaps she is being beaten at this moment. Xia Xingyun must be crying very badly now, but unfortunately she can't see it immediately. I really want to stay until tomorrow immediately. No, Xia Xingyun won't be able to attend classes tomorrow, will he? Then go to her house tomorrow to see her. Zhu Rennan's itinerary for tomorrow has been arranged, but the agreed photos and videos have not been sent yet. Why is it so long? Is there anything unexpected? At this moment, the bell that she was eagerly anticipating rang. Zhu Rennan quickly opened the door. In the next moment, she stiffened all over, her eyes staring like copper bells. She supported the nearby tree and vomited, "Crazy guy." The video of Guanan Fangzi, with its spicy eyes breaking through the sky, was immediately imprinted in Zhu Rennan's mind at a glance. She contributed all the food she worked hard to eat at night, as well as all the bile in her body. Ugh! After washing up at night, Xingyun Mimi changed into her newly bought clothes and wore a blue and white striped T-shirt. Looking at my own Nebula in the mirror, I am happy. The clothes are still like this, they look much more comfortable. Unfortunately, there is no logo or medical gown material available. The appearance of Xia Xingyun is not as large as the skeleton of Xia's father and mother, and she belongs to a medium to small skeleton. My skin is a bit dark due to prolonged exposure to sunlight, but my facial features are delicate and fair, making me a pretty little girl. Thinking about the second hidden task, the excellent young lady took out her work manual and recorded it in her work log. Put away the work manual, and Xingyun will go find Xia's father and mother. Mom and Dad, I've discovered a big secret in our family. Xingyun's expression was too serious, and Xia's father and mother didn't care about her new clothes and were completely attracted by her words. Secret. What secrets do we have at home? Xia's father and mother put down their work and Chi looked at her with confusion. Nebula. I found many small yellow croakers at home, she said with an extremely shocked expression. The expression on Xingyun's face was too exaggerated, and the smile on Xia's father and mother's face couldn't stop. Their family is always so happy and sunny. But little yellow croaker, their family cannot have it. Their family has been digging and eating for 3 generations, so it's impossible for them to have small yellow croakers. Xia's father and mother looked incredulous, obviously taking Nebula's words as a joke. We are so well behaved, we finished laughing. You're also tired today, let's rest early. What I said is true. Nebula looked serious and serious. Puff. Ha ha ha. Looking at her small appearance, Xia's parents suddenly remembered her childhood. A small little person, with a serious face when eating, white and tender, like a little fairy child. How could there be such a lovely and beautiful child in the world? At that time, Xia's parents saw Xia Xingyun at a glance and thought she was their child. Oh my, what I said is true. Nebula insists on them going to see. Father Xia doted on the child and immediately nodded. Xia's mother didn't want to go, and in the end, she was so entangled that she couldn't do anything about it. Her daughter rarely acted coquettishly with them, and they just kept talking, obviously still not believing it. Okay, let's go. Xingyun pulled Xia's father and mother to the backyard of the house, where there was a cellar that had been abandoned for many years since Xia Xingyun's grandfather's generation. Now, only some miscellaneous items are placed outside. What are you doing here? It's so dirty. Yaya, why don't you go back with your mother? Xia's father quickly moved the things in front of him and said, Young Xia, be careful under your feet. Summer's mother glared at him, still playing so late. Nebula pulled them straight to the entrance of the cellar. The little yellow croaker is in the cellar. Xia's parents wanted to laugh, but when faced with the serious face of Xingyun, they had to endure it, and the corners of their mouths couldn't stop rising. Xia Xingyun was adopted by the Xia family when they were in their 30s. Although they are not considered older couples, they generally get married early, and Xia Xingyun is considered an old daughter to them. Although I don't know what went wrong with my daughter, the baby girl showed me and they just watched. Okay, let's take a look. Father Xia signaled to Mother Xia and Nebula Station to stay away, as this cellar has not been opened for a long time. Seeing them standing far away, Xia's father finally opened the cellar. The cellar was dark and empty, illuminated by a flashlight. Alright, the adventure is over, let's go back to sleep. Xia's father and mother laughed. Mom and Dad, look inside. Xingyun reached out and pointed into the cellar. Xia's parents instinctively turned their heads, and in the next moment, their smiles froze, their mouths grew larger, and they were completely foolish. The flashlight in Xia's hand fell off, and the reflected light pierced their eyes without any reaction. The cellar was filled with golden yellow croakers from the ground to the top. They really have small yellow croakers at home, Miss Tianjin. There must be a home for Tianjin. Nebula nodded, and the mission had taken the perfect first step. Thinking about Xingyun looking down at the basic script written in the work manual, intending to brainwash Xia's parents. No, it's just a deception. After all, what appears out of thin air requires a reasonable explanation. But before Xingyun could speak, Xia's father suddenly noticed oxygen and took a deep breath. Son of a bitch, what my father said is true. Nebula. What is the situation? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 5. Originally, the Xia family had served as the shopkeeper of the Golden Tower, but later declined. Since Xia's grandfather, he has been nagging his son about his family's wealth, and his father has been nagging him about his family's wealth. Father Xia never cared about it. Since my grandfather, their family has been digging and eating in the fields. Instead of thinking about the past, it's better to focus on the practical benefits of the manor. At this moment, Xia's father believed that their family really has a fortune. The hands of Xia's father and mother shaking together. Xingyun asked Chenyu from behind, isn't this too coincidental? Our little fresh rich system is unique, specially tailored for tasks at this moment. It seems that even the Nebula can see Chenyu's proud face. Nebula. If she had drawn something else, you would never have said that. Mom and Dad, I went to bed. Accompanied by Chenyu's incessant chattering and swaying of the little fresh rich system, Xingyun fell asleep beautifully. The next day, when I woke up and opened the door, I saw 2 pairs of black panda eyes. Mom and Dad, what's wrong with you? Xingyun quickly came out of the room and walked over to them. It's okay, let's discuss it, said Xia's father and mother, who were wearing the clothes they wore last night, as they stiffened and turned their heads to look at her. You go sleep. Nebula. Still sleeping. It's already daylight now. Even if there are reasonable reasons, it seems that she should still take action. This is not conducive to health for Xia's parents. Xingyun quickly fooled them back to sleep. Xia's parents opened their eyes and looked at each other in unison, saying, I had a dream yesterday. They paused at the same time and spoke in unison, I dreamt there were many small yellow croakers at home. Xia's father and mother were dumbfounded and suddenly turned their heads to look at the clock. It's after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Why did they sleep for so long? Yaya. Xia's parents quickly changed into clothes and rushed out at the same time. As soon as they rushed out of the house, their entire bodies were covered in shivers. There is actually a strange man at home. A tall young man in his 20s, wearing an old camouflage shirt and black pants. Although his clothes were old, he looked clean, tidy, and particularly energetic. But the question is, who is this? They don't know each other at all. The young man saw Xia's father and mother and immediately stood up straight, showing a standard 8-tooth smile. He slightly bowed and said, Sir, Madam, you're up. Father and mother of Xia. At this moment, a young woman walked in from outside the door, dressed in clothes similar to those of a man. She saw Xia's father and mother quickly stand up straight, showing a smile with 8 teeth and bowing slightly, saying, Sir, Madam. After speaking, the woman walked aside to work. Xia's parents looked at them and quickly ran around to look for the figure of their precious daughter. On the way, they saw several strangers. When they found the Nebula in the yard, they were almost crying. Yaya, there are many strange people at home. As she spoke, Xia's parents looked around with a strange expression and continued in a low voice, the clothes they were wearing looked like migrant workers working. But that person doesn't look like that at first glance. What kind of people are they? One by one, Sir, Madam. Nebula closed the work manual and smiled. Sure enough, everyone has their own wisdom. A wealthy family cannot just have it, it still needs someone to take care of it. Xia Xingyun wants his parents to enjoy happiness, not work. So Nebula hired another butler, and these people were all attached to the butler. In order to adapt to the current situation in their family, everyone came only after dressing up. Even Nebula never expected that this butler's workability would be so rapid. And the butler himself is still on his way. Xingyun had a good conversation with Xia's father and mother, and only then did they accept the extra people in their family. Looking at the discomfort on Xia's father and mother's face, Xingyun spoke up and said, Mom and Dad, let's move. Since Xia's parents can see it, others can also see it. Leave the village first, with time buffer, everything will be easier to handle. Xia's father and mother were taken aback. I'm about to advance to the 3rd year of high school. How about we move to live near the school? Xia's father and mother are different from others. They had already told the original owner that they would follow where the original owner went to university in the future. They didn't want Xia Xingyun to suffer alone outside. Upon hearing Xingyun say so, they thought it over and agreed that the land could be planted for others, but they had to accompany them at home. Xia's father asked Uncle Li, who smoked with him yesterday, to help take care of the land. When he returned, he discussed the matter of the house with Xia's mother. In the words of the road butler, As long as the little yellow croaker is in place, there is nothing that cannot be solved. To the public, it is said that Xia's father went to do business with friends and his family also took care of everything. The next day, they will move in directly with their bags near Xia Xingyun school. Xingyun also hires 2 bodyguards specifically to protect Xia's father and mother. If this continues, Xia's father cannot be injured again. The first task can be said to have been perfectly completed halfway, and the rest is a matter of time. Sitting on the soft sofa, Xia's parents still felt unreal, and their whole body was drifting and dreamy. Yesterday they still lived in the village, and today they live in a big house. Xia's father leaned over to Xia's mother and whispered, "Is our family's money still enough to spend?" Although these were all done by the butler who was still on the way, looking at the house, the furniture, and the food prepared for them, they all feel that they are not cheap. Father Xia always feels empty and flustered in his heart. That day they discovered the little yellow croaker, and they didn't count it either. They had no idea how much money they had at home now. We can't just sit idly by, can we? Think more about Yaya in the future. Lying on the sofa next to him, Starry Cloud watches TV and puts down the milk in his hand. Xia's words reminded her that her breathing was much smoother now, but the golden mountain was still growing non-stop. She had to quickly find other ways to use the gold. There is too much gold, it's really frustrating. At this moment, a jewelry advertisement was playing on TV. Xingyun smiled, "Jinjian. There's no better idea than not even having to buy goods. There is systematic supervision, and the hired personnel are definitely worth the money, so there is no need for Nebula to worry. She just needs to replenish the goods on a regular basis." I talked to my parents and they all agreed. My daughter has such great ability to find an all-around butler, so finding someone else must also be impressive. After being deceived by Nebula in the past 2 days, now Xia's father and mother are staunch supporters of Nebula. Xia's gold store was established step by step under the pressure of others. Monday. Zhu Rennan carefully slipped out of the wall, avoiding people all the way and charging towards the school with a heavy head. "Since I finished watching The Madman." Nauseous. She sees a man now, her heart beats so fast that she feels dizzy and flustered. Only after entering school did Zhu Rennan feel better, afraid of encountering a madman. She was about to breathe a sigh of relief when she felt a chill in her back, as if she had been targeted by a wild beast. Ah! End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Most Proud Countryside 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Most Proud Countryside 6. A hand quickly approached Zhu Rennan from behind and patted her shoulder. Zhu Rennan let out a scream and squatted on the ground with weak legs. Xingyun chuckled lightly and looked at the trembling Zhu Rennan with a surprised expression. "Nan, what's wrong with you?" Upon hearing the familiar voice, Zhu Rennan looked up and saw Xia Xingyun breathing a sigh of relief. After a while, he glared at her angrily and said, "What are you doing? You scared me to death." "I'll say hello to you," said Xingyun with a bewildered expression. The girl was dressed in school uniform, with a ponytail, clean and refreshing. Although she was still in her original appearance, there was an indescribable feeling when she looked at her. Zhu Rennan always felt that Xia Xingyun looked a bit different from before today, and she couldn't describe it. The girl had a bright smile on her face at this moment, like the sunshine in winter, always so happy and happy. It was the smiling face that Zhu Rennan hated the most. They are all from nearby villages, why can Xia Xingyun live such a happy and joyful life? Zhu Rennan stood up from the ground and looked at Xia Xingyun suspiciously. "Why did you take a leave on Friday?" "There's something at home," said Xingyun casually. This was what Xia's mother said to her teacher on leave. Zhu Rennan tentatively asked her, "I heard you met that thug after school on Thursday. Are you okay?" "Who did you hear that?" Xingyun looked at her in confusion. "It was a face-to-face encounter, and I ran away." Lying. That day, Zhu Rennan followed them all the time and only left when Xia Xingyun and the madman entered the alley house. Something must have happened that day. Xia Xingyun couldn't have had nothing to do, but her appearance couldn't be seen. And the madman. Nauseous Zhu Rennan quickly covered his chest and risked his life to shake off the image in his mind. She still had to ask, and then the Nebula walking next to her spoke up first. By the way, didn't you make me wait for you that day? Why didn't you come? Zhu Rennan was taken aback and quickly said, I was delayed by something that day. I didn't see you when I went. Did we cross paths? Xingyun nodded and continued walking towards the teaching building, as if agreeing with this statement. Seeing Xia Xingyun not suspicious, Zhu Rennan breathed a sigh of relief, but her breath was choked before she could exhale. By the way, Nan, when will you repay the money I borrowed from you? Nebula's smile remained unchanged. I'm a bit tight this month. If you don't repay me, I won't have enough money for meals. Zhu Rennan immediately became angry. Is it really a plastic sister's flower, or the best friend? Don't think she doesn't know. Xia Xingyun has a monthly meal allowance of 1,000 yuan, and her parents even give her pocket money on weekdays. The meal expenses are abundant. What is the relationship between the money she borrowed last month and this month? If she doesn't want to borrow it, just say it directly. It's disgusting that she still finds such an excuse. Nebula, are we still the best friends? If you don't want to borrow from me, you don't have to find such an excuse. Even if something happens in the future, I won't come looking for you again. Zhu Rennan turned his head and left Xingyun alone to run away. Seeing her like that, those who didn't know thought it was Xia Xingyun owing her money. The person who really owes money is an uncle. Who gave Zhu Rennan such unbridled confidence? Is it Xia Xingyun's kindness? Originally, when Xia Xingyun talked to her about money, Zhu Rennan would get angry and keep quiet about what she had to say, as if Xia Xingyun would die if he said anything more. Every time Xia Xingyun spoke, he felt embarrassed to mention it again. I'm not planning to mention the Nebula again this time. Xia Xingyun has borrowed more than 400 yuan from her so far. Each time there are only 2 of them, cash, no third party present, no IOU. Xingyun felt that it was too troublesome to get the money back from Zhu Rennan, and she didn't need it either. She just gave Zhu Rennan a portion of the money in advance, so she could walk more easily on the road. Nebula walked leisurely towards the classroom. During class, Nebula listens attentively, takes notes, and actively answers questions from teachers. Listening to the unanimous praise from the teachers, Xingyun nodded in her heart. Miss Qianji needs to have a good upbringing, and listening attentively is the most basic. After class, Xingyun took out a bottle of yogurt, inserted a straw, and drank it. He looked at Zhu Rennan with his eyes, pondering how to abuse the scum. Rolling nail board. Add oil to the pan. Did you just cross it? Zhu Rennan suddenly felt a sense of crisis at the school gate this morning. She suddenly turned her head and looked around, but didn't notice anything. Watching Xia Xingyun drinking yogurt and reading a book not far away, Zhu Rennan felt a chill in her heart. She would enjoy it, and indeed, saying she didn't have money to eat before was just deceiving her. The feeling of Zhu Rennan turning her head reappeared. She had been restless all morning and was even called by the teacher once. The bell rang for the last class in the morning, and Zhu Rennan quickly stood up and rushed out of the classroom. Xingyun tidied up his textbooks and came forward on duty to clean the blackboard. After wiping the blackboard, the classroom was empty. She took the blackboard and came to the window to take a look below. Chenyu, the mission of being a scumbag, just cross the target and drop it, said Xingyun, holding a blackboard eraser and sticking it out of the window, aiming to look at Zhu Rennan's head as he stood downstairs. This is a good location that can block the gaze of outsiders and also provide a clear view of the situation outside the school. Seeing the meeting gift she had prepared, Zhu Rennan must have been extremely panicked and afraid that the madman would come to her for justice, so she definitely didn't dare to leave the school directly. From the perspective of maximizing residual value and waste utilization, it is not recommended to simply fork it out in the past few days. Nebula has read the work manual carefully, but there are no clear requirements for abusing scum in the manual. Chenyu's meaning is that if you fork it directly, there will only be one reward, but as long as you keep a breath, you can get more rewards. Nebula looks at the continuously growing golden mountains. It's a bit regrettable that she just came up with several plans to just fork them out this morning. Chenyu nodded and said, okay. She reached out the window and let go of her fingers, which were wiping the blackboard. The blackboard eraser's free fall instantly disappeared outside the window, followed by Zhu Rennan's exclamation of surprise downstairs. Chenyu stroked the window and looked out, facing Zhu Rennan with a frightened expression. He looked apologetic and said, sorry, my hand slipped just now. Are you okay, Nan Nan? Xia Chenyu. Just now, the blackboard brushed against Zhu Rennan's face and almost disfigured her. Zhu Rennan's chest heaved up and down, so frightened that she couldn't say a word for a moment. When she regained her composure and planned to curse Xia Chenyu, she looked up and found that there was no one above her. Zhu Rennan. Xia Chenyu. Zhu Rennan shouted, picking up the eraser and charging angrily towards the classroom. Please use your golden fingers more to complete tasks. Listening to the system prompt, the Nebula turned around and bathed in the sunlight. Make a dagger out of gold and directly fork her out. Please consider maximizing residual value. Nebula. Then make a maze out of gold and throw her inside to self-destruct. Please consider the laws of the small world. Chenyu pouted and said, it's so troublesome. At this moment, a chaotic sound of footsteps came from the corridor, breaking the tranquility of the classroom at this moment. With an angry expression on his face, Zhu Rennan held up the blackboard eraser and rushed in. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Most Proud Countryside Y7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Most Proud Countryside Y7, Summer Nebula. Zhu Rennan shouted and rushed forward with big strides. As the fire hit the top beam door, she held up the blackboard eraser in her hand, ready to give Chenyu a good look. Shenyun's expression remained unchanged as he lifted his foot and kicked the broom next to the wall. Zhu Rennan stepped on the broom and mixed his steps with garlic. With a splash, a big horse crouched over. Ah! Chenyu squatted down, picked up the blackboard that had fallen to the ground, and wiped it away before slowly walking to Zhu Rennan's side. Nan Nan, are you okay? Why are you so careless? Look, it hurts, right? Said Chenyu, taking out a handkerchief to wipe the scratch on Zhu Rennan's hand. As soon as the nebula wiped away, Zhu Rennan felt a burning pain in her hands. She was about to curse but was interrupted. Nan Nan, it's really kind of you to help me wipe the blackboard back. By the way, Teacher Zhang just came back to pick up something. Let's hurry up and leave. Teacher Zhang is their homeroom teacher, very strict, and her classmates are afraid of her. If you see them still dawdling in the classroom at this time, you will definitely say they. Upon hearing Nebula's words, as a student's instinct, Zhu Rennan's anger was like a punctured balloon, instantly gone. She followed Chenyu and quickly left the classroom. It wasn't until she walked outside that Zhu Rennan realized it was broken. Zhu Rennan nervously looked around, probing his head like a thief, making Chenyu laugh. The lunch outside the school was extremely rich, with everything available. Nebula quickly caught its attention and left Zhu Rennan to search for delicious food. As soon as the nebula left, the madman appeared. He was already outside the school, only afraid to appear when he saw the nebula. Now Nebula is the devil of hell to him, and last time he really thought he was killed by Nebula. When he woke up, he ran to the police station in one breath to seek help, but in the end he only has 2 big dates on his head, and there are no other problems, all of which is like a dream. Being blown out by the police, the madman was completely dazed. The devil's whispers of Chenyu were still lingering in his ear. Looking at the malicious gaze of the madman, Zhu Rennan stiffened all over, shouting in his heart to escape, but his legs couldn't move a step. Quanzi took a few big steps to catch Zhu Rennan, and the next moment Zhu Rennan vomited Quanzi. Zhu, people, Nan. Ugh. Xingyun, holding a bought lunch, turned around and happened to see Zhu Rennan and Quanzi walking away, pulling and tugging. Xingyun smiled and said, I suddenly came up with a good idea. In fact, on the first encounter, the Nebula only saw its eyes, and on the second encounter, it was blocked by a mosaic, so the Nebula had never seen the face of a madman. But considering the current situation, she also guessed the man's identity. The madman pulled Zhu Rennan to a remote place and immediately shook her off, hiding far away. Zhu Rennan, how dare you intentionally harm me? I'm telling you, this is not over. If it weren't for Zhu Rennan, how could he have met that devil? Zhu Rennan covered her chest and felt nauseous, her face filled with fear and confusion. What harmed him? What did she do? Half-paid Zhu Rennan finally took a breath and asked, what exactly happened that day? Why doesn't Xia Xinyan look at anything? Quanzi was about to speak with anger on his face, and when Yu Guang saw Zhu Rennan behind him, his face instantly turned white. Demon. Ghost. Trembling, the madman pushed away Zhu Rennan and ran out, all the way back home with a heavy head. When it was getting dark, the madman opened the door and came out, intending to buy something to eat. As soon as he opened the door, he saw his lost phone lying quietly at the door. Quanzi quickly picked up his phone from the ground and opened it to see that there was no problem. Quanzi breathed a sigh of relief, he doesn't have the money to buy another phone now. Just happy, he noticed a lot of information on his phone. When he clicked on it, the madman's whole body instantly petrified. He shook his hands and quickly deleted his own photo video. He only managed to squeeze out a roar from between his teeth for half a salary, Zhu, man, Nan. So it turned out, he understood. He said how Zhu Rennan could hate her best friend who was so kind to her and borrowed money. Any jealousy turned out to be an excuse made up to deceive him. I want to threaten him with this kind of thing, get rid of him, that's beautiful. Quanzi angrily walked out, just turned a path, and his footsteps trembled before turning and running back. As a result, he hadn't taken 2 steps when a group of people quickly surrounded him. Brother Zhao, why did you come? Said the madman with a flattering expression as he looked at the man in charge. If I don't come, I won't be able to get this money back, right? Zhao sneered. Quanzi squeezed out a smile that was even uglier than crying. Brother, how dare I say that? I don't have a younger brother as big as you. Zhao gestured to his subordinates, give me a fight. Don't. Give me some more time. Ah. They only stopped when they saw the madman lying motionless on the ground. Remember, repay the money as soon as possible, otherwise you'll end up with one hand next time. Zhao finished speaking and left with his younger brothers. As soon as they came out, they saw a car parked across the street. Little brother. Big brother, what person did the madman offend? Originally, the madman still had time to prepare to repay the money, but now he doesn't. Zhao glared coldly at him, and the younger brothers quickly lowered their brows and eyes, afraid to look any further. Remember not to ask what you shouldn't know. Otherwise, if we go underground, don't blame me for not reminding you. After finishing speaking, Zhao looked at the car across the street, nodded and gestured before leaving with his younger brothers. After they left, the half-paid madman slowly leaned against the wall and moved out. As he looked up, he also saw the car across the street. This road is secluded, let alone such an expensive car, parking here is particularly abrupt. At this moment, the car window came down, revealing the face of the Nebula. The Nebula reveals the most brilliant and sunny smile of the summer nebula. Demon, devil. Watching the familiar devil smile, the madman began to tremble all over. He fell to the ground, the car window closed, and the car drove away. Quanzi used to be a nightmare of Xia Xingyun waking up from a midnight dream, and this scumbag also wants to completely squeeze out the last remaining value. Nebula is carefully recorded in the work manual. She has all the props ready. What surprises will the scumbags give her? I'm really looking forward to. Since the last time he met Quanzi, Zhu Rennan has been trembling these days, afraid that Quanzi will retaliate against her. After school, Zhu Rennan came directly to Xingyun and said, "Hurry up, let's go together." She had planned to let Xia Xingyun charge forward whenever there was danger, and she happened to escape. Xingyun slowly packed her backpack, apologizing for looking at her. "I'm on duty today," she said. "I really can't use it." With a snort, Zhu Rennan turned around and left. The later it was, the more unsafe she felt. It was only when there were many people that she could feel more at ease. Zhu Rennan still stood at the same place last time, observing the outside of the school, but this time she stood against the wall, afraid of falling from above again. After confirming that there was no figure outside who wanted to vomit, she quickly rushed out. Just as she turned the intersection and was about to reach the bus stop, a hand suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed her. Zhu Rennan. Crazy guy. Ugh. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 8. This newly released pearl milk tea is really delicious. Hey, isn't that Zhu Rennan? The girl's words fell, and several girls around also looked at her together. A girl spoke up and said, "I've seen that man before, it seems like Zhu Rennan's boyfriend." "Is it really fake?" The girls were extremely surprised. The girl who spoke before nodded and said, "I saw them holding hands while shopping together. They are still relatively feudal here, and in school, they like people silently and secretly, which makes them blush. I didn't expect Zhu Rennan to be so amazing. She even had a boyfriend outside of school." After paying, Xingyun walked up to them and curiously asked, "What are you talking about?" "Look, Zhu Rennan and her boyfriend." The girl reached out to show Xingyun, but there was no one there anymore. "Strange, where are the people?" A girl next to her looked at the time on her phone and said, "Oh, it's all this time. Lao Zhang, come back from the meeting soon. Let's hurry back." "Xia Xingyun, thank you for your milk tea." Xingyun smiled and said, "I should be thanking you all. If you're on duty, I'll trouble you. We're leaving." A few girls waved at Xingyun and ran back to school, chatting and laughing. Nebula turned around and walked to a road slightly away from the school. The driver got out of the car and opened the car door for Nebula. Xingyun got into the car. As soon as the car started, she received a message that Quanzi and Zhu Rennan had gone to the small low house in the alley before. "I have watched the video and can still go there. The behavior of the crazy person in the Nebula is a bit incomprehensible. Is the madman's heart as broad as the ocean, and that kind of little video is not painful or itchy for him? Quanzi is certainly not such a person, but he doesn't have any other place to go, and he still has to spend money wherever he goes. The only reason for such a reality is that no one has come to this dilapidated place, which is still remote." Visiting the small video scene in person, Zhu Rennan, who happened to order, began to feel nauseous again. Half paid, she took a breath and glared angrily at the madman. "What are you bringing me here for? We don't have a problem anymore." "It's okay." The madman sneered, "If you say it's okay, then it's okay. Okay, you can return all the money I spent on you and I'll let you go. How about that?" Zhu Rennan looked panicked and said, "What money? Those things were all given to me by you. I tell you crazy, you better let me go, otherwise I won't be polite to you." "You're welcome." The madman looked disdainful. "Why do you want to be polite? What photos and videos should we use? Even if you put it online, I'm not afraid. Last time I already found a buyer, said the madman, taking out his phone. Seeing him like this, Zhu Rennan immediately understood what he wanted to do. She covered her chest with a wary expression and said, "What are you doing? You're crazy." The madman sneered, "Why pretend? You gave me this idea. Get lost." Shouting that Zhu Rennan was about to run out, the madman grabbed her and soon the two of them got into a fight. Zhu Rennan is also someone who has done farm work, and for a while, the two of them did not determine the winner. Nebula returned home, opened his laptop, and saw the end of their fight from the surveillance footage. Just as Nebula was in high spirits and preparing to bring some snacks, the long-lost black ointment mosaic reappeared. Nebula. After a while, there was no sound left. "We are the green system." Chenyu spoke with a natural tone. Nebula. The green range of the system is a bit broad. Forget it, if you don't look, then don't look. Anyway, it's all recorded. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, and the sound of the butler who finally rushed over yesterday came from outside. "Miss, the custom-made clothes have arrived. It has been placed in your closet. I'm calling from the company and I need you to confirm the documents." "Well, I got it," said Xingyun as he stood up and walked towards the cloakroom. "There is a system to check, and the hired person is indeed impressive. As long as her money is in place, there is nothing she cannot do." Just a few days after she sent the blueprint of her clothes, the clothes had already been delivered. The Nebula opened the wardrobe and saw the clothes that were exactly the same as her memory. Xingyun quickly took out his blue and white striped hospital uniform and put it on, standing in front of the mirror to shine. Looking at the logo of the Sunshine Mental Hospital printed on the patient's uniform, Xingyun smiled. Sure enough, this outfit is still comfortable to wear. Starry clouds gracefully spun around in front of the mirror before returning to their laptop. Upon seeing the demand for money, the system did not remind everyone to agree. Upon seeing the hired person, the system prompted a cross, and all others were hired. Nebula dealt with everything with great ease and was quickly completed. She had just turned off her computer when her phone rang, indicating that she was the current manager of the company. Nebula connected. "Hello. This person has strong abilities." Previously, he lacked talent and had strong financial support from Nebula. The Xia family's golden building was well managed. "Why are you still calling after work?" As soon as she connected, Manager Li's nervous explanation came from over there. It turned out that Xingyun gave money too generously, and Manager Li thought she didn't understand. After listening to him finish speaking, Xingyun spoke up and said, "You don't need to call specifically to confirm this kind of thing in the future. I have confirmed that there is no problem. You don't have to worry about money. You just need to be responsible for making Xia's golden tower the existence that others look up to at the fastest speed." Manager Li hung up the phone excitedly, and Xia's mother's voice came from outside, "Yaya, it's time to eat. Today is all your favorite dish. Your father will give you a little gift and bring it back." Coming. Nebula happily opened the door and went out. The next day, Zhu Rennan came to school with an injury, and she said she accidentally fell. As a good friend and an insider, Xingyun should do what a friend should do, which is also what a well-educated young lady should do. Xingyun walked up to Zhu Rennan with the breakfast he had bought in the morning and said, Nan, are you okay? Did you have breakfast? If you haven't eaten anything, I'll give you this. Zhu Rennan did not eat anything and attended a class. At this point, she was already hungry and pressed her chest against her back. Seeing that it was soy milk, she immediately took it over and took a sip. Puff. The next moment, she vomited all out, her whole face contorted in pain. Nebula took a step back and said, Nan, you're dirty. Half a salary later, Zhu Rennan's grinning voice came through, what the hell is this? It hurts me so much. The corner of his broken mouth was burning with pain. Nebula. Soup with pepper. What? Zhu Renan's voice changed tone. No, it hurts her so much. She quickly got up and ran to the bathroom. Xingyun continued to add as he looked at her back, it's really spicy. When Zhu Rennan returned, all her anger focused on Xia Xingyun. At this moment, she suddenly realized that Xia Xingyun seemed to have become a wealthy person. The clothes, shoes, and stationery are all new, and I even have a watch on my hand. She has seen that watch in a magazine and it costs over 500,000 yuan. Why did she suddenly become so wealthy? Money, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Most Proud Countryside Ya 9. Zhu Renan's anger disappeared inexplicably. She walked up to Nebula and tentatively asked, Nebula, your watch is so beautiful. Why haven't I seen you wear it before? Does this cost a lot of money? Xingyun smiled brightly and said, this is a gift my dad gave me yesterday. Even if the Xia family is a shopkeeper, they should send a representative to express their gratitude. Yesterday it was Xia's turn. When he went to talk about cooperation, he only looked at his watch. I remember when Yaya was a child, she made a fuss about buying a watch, but didn't have the money to buy it for her child at that time. Now, unlike in the past, Xia's parents wear their original clothes due to their frugal habits, but when they spend money on their precious daughters, they don't even blink their eyes. They also have watches in their golden house, but they are all pure gold, so wearing them can be a bit risky. After the cooperation agreement was reached, Xia Fu made sure that all the watches at the counter were suitable for him. He decided to wear them instead. Xingyun casually took a piece to wear when she left in the morning. Nebula looked at the watch on his wrist and said, I'm not sure about the price either. My dad has been doing business with friends lately. It was that uncle who helped him buy it. No wonder, Zhu Renan's face was like this. She asked Xia Xingyun, the father who shaved food in the field, what kind of taste could he have? She also saw it in a particularly expensive magazine, because the style and price were too beautiful, and Zhu Renan's memory is particularly profound. This watch looks really nice. Zhu Rennan didn't mention the price and reluctantly glanced at his watch before turning around and returning to his seat. After class, Zhu Rennan immediately ran out of the classroom. She came to a remote corner of the school playground with her phone in hand. Hurry up, pick up the phone. Zhu Rennan started sending messages during class, but the madman didn't respond at all. As soon as she saw the phone connect, she quickly said, Crazy, did you not sell the video? Why did you even call me? They had already torn their faces apart, and Zhu Renan's phone fanatic felt inexplicable. He touched the corner of his broken mouth and bared his teeth. Answer me first, Zhu Rennan said anxiously. No, there isn't. The madman was impatient and had to deal with the video, which was also so strict. He always felt that the other party was trying to lower the price. Zhu Rennan breathed a sigh of relief and said, I have a way to get the money right away. Why don't you do it? What's the solution? The madman quickly asked, as the money for the video was already a drop in the bucket for him. If he didn't raise enough money, he would lose his arms and legs. Even if there was a wolf in front of him at this moment, as long as the wolf's feet were made of gold, he could rush forward without hesitation. Seeing the madman take the bait, Zhu Rennan smiled proudly and said, I have a classmate who has a watch worth over 500,000 yuan in his hand. She was clever enough not to say the rest, but the madman already understood. More than 500,000 in their small place is already astronomical. Zhu Rennan emphasized that his classmates do not know the price of watches. Quanzi immediately nodded, and the two of them quickly finalized the plan. Although he didn't know the reason, Zhu Rennan keenly noticed that Quanzi seemed to be very afraid of Xia Xingyun. So she was smart enough not to say that the owner of this watch is Xia Xingyun. The scorching sun is shining, and the branches and leaves are tired and asleep. Only the lively cicadas are celebrating the arrival of the holiday with everyone. You have made great progress this semester and need to continue working hard. As long as you work hard, even schools in Haishur are possible, you know. Teacher Zhang, the homeroom teacher, rarely shows a gentle smile, which she thinks is just that the cake is painted a bit too big. Xia Xingyun is just an ordinary child, and if he were to be raised with the best resources from a young age, there is still a possibility. But now, if the original owner were present, it would be absolutely impossible for Teacher Zhang's pancake. When Xingyun returned from the office, he saw Zhu Rennan. During this period, she has been wanting to make an appointment with Xingyun to go out, but Xingyun has refused on the grounds of studying. Just after the holiday, she couldn't wait to come over again. Xingyun nodded and said, "Okay. Last time you said there was a store selling small accessories, so let's go there." Looking at the sunny smile on Xingyun's face, Zhu Rennan didn't react for a moment. She didn't even say anything about preparing a car before, so she agreed. "Since it's so enjoyable, why did you refuse before?" During this period of time, Quanzi has been urging her like a life rush, causing her nerves to weaken and her studies to plummet. Her family has been fighting for several rounds. Ignoring her blackened face, Xingyun made an appointment with her and got up to carry a backpack home. The agreed day arrived quickly. Xingyun is very punctual and also carries a watch worth 500,000 yuan. They successfully arrived at the location agreed upon by Zhu Rennan and Quanzi. A bustling street with snacks and accessories, and the alleys next to it are even more remote and quiet. The timing, location, and people are all in harmony, so we just need to take action. Zhu Rennan found an excuse to leave the meeting with Quanzi. "Where are people?" The madman stared ahead and kept looking around. Zhu Rennan extended his finger to show him, "That's it, the one over there who drinks milk." Speaking of this, Zhu Rennan's face was full of disdain. She even brought her own milk when she went out, saying that pearl milk tea was not healthy. Xia Xingyun thought she was some kind of young lady. A village maid really dares to think. Upon hearing this, Quanzi looked at Xingyun's face and trembled in fear, saying, "How could it be her? How is Xia Xingyun?" Quanzi's reaction was too excited, and Zhu Rennan was startled. She had previously speculated that the madman was afraid that Xia Xingyun might have failed due to the previous incident and felt embarrassed. But the madman's reaction now seems to be a bit off. Zhu Rennan was puzzled, "What's wrong with Xia Xingyun? That's a watch worth 500,000 yuan. She looked excited, and as soon as she sold the watch, they would make a fortune." Quanzi quickly shook his head and said, "No, no. I won't do it anymore," said the madman as he was about to escape. Zhu Rennan grabbed him and said, "Are you a man? Did you actually withdraw from the last step? The favorable timing, favorable location, and harmonious people will never have such good opportunities in the future." Zhu Rennan thought that when she said this, the madman must be anxious. Even men couldn't listen to such words, but he ran faster and Zhu Rennan couldn't even hold him back. Zhu Rennan watched as the madman ran away and stomped his feet anxiously, feeling resentful. As a result, the madman who was about to run away ran back, followed by some people. Quickly, these people came to surround Zhu Rennan and Quanzi. Leader Zhao grinned and said, "Brother, it's time. Are your hands ready? Which one, left or right?" As soon as he came up, he was about to chop his hands. Zhu Rennan had never seen such a scene before and was immediately frightened. Looking at the malicious gazes of those people, Zhu Rennan was afraid that they would take her to pay off the debt. She quickly spoke about the Xia Xingyun watch. Sure enough, Zhao Gu was very interested after listening and said, "Give you one last chance. Brother Zhao, give me some more time, I will definitely," said the madman, trembling all over. His words are obviously ineffective. Two henchmen came over to fight and walked straight forward, watching as the madman approached Xia Xingyun step by step. The madman's legs became weak, and long marks dragged out from his feet. He desperately shook his head and said, "No, no, I'm not going." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Most Proud Countryside Y10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The Most Proud Countryside Y10. Where have you been, Nan Nan? Why has it been so long? Xingyun stopped playing with the doll in his hand and looked at Zhu Rennan walking towards him. In such a short while, Xia Xingyun surprisingly bought such an expensive doll again. The dolls in this store are so expensive that they cost a few hundred for a small one. Is her family going to rob a bank? Zhu Rennan tried hard to suppress her envy and jealousy in her heart and walked over with a smile. I asked clearly, where is that small accessory store? Let's pass through here and it's just right there. Xingyun nodded and followed Zhu Rennan towards the nearby alley. They had just entered the alley when suddenly some people rushed out to surround them. One by one, they looked fierce and evil, but at first glance, they were not good people. Among this group of people, there was a prominent man at the beginning, who made the two of them fight as if they were about to pass. Nebula recognizes him, madman. Zhu Rennan looked frightened and hid beside him. Who are you and why are you surrounding us? The strong men turned a deaf ear to Zhu Rennan's words. The two men holding the madman kicked him and gestured for him to speak. They are good citizens who abide by the law and do not engage in illegal activities. It's just collecting a debt. If the debtor does something illegal, they can't control it. Why are there so many people here? They just watch the excitement, keep an eye on people, pay off debts on time, and they don't know anything else. The madman trembled and said, "Fight, fight, rob." The madman was extremely afraid. He felt like he had fallen into a trap, but he couldn't escape. Last time I saw Xia Xingyun across the street, he felt like Zhao Gu and Xia Xingyun were together. Now Zhao's people are actually taking him to rob their own people. This is definitely a trap. Actually, Quanzi guessed half right. Last time it was indeed Xia Xingyun's handwriting, but who said that a group of people should know each other? Don't mention these little guys, it's just Zhao who came over, they don't know each other. Confidentiality, security, and the convenience of the internet. Xingyun saw him trembling like a sieve, his head shaking like a tambourine, and his lips turning white. He should need 120 more now. Xingyun, quickly give them valuable things. Zhu Rennan urged beside him. Something of value. Starry Cloud looked at herself, and the most valuable thing was her clothes. They were handmade by Master L, and there was only one piece in the world. And there are also shoes, which are limited edition globally. Clothes cannot be taken off, and one cannot walk without shoes. As the Nebula pondered what the most valuable thing to give them, Zhu Rennan reminded them nearby, watches. She thought Xia Xingyun was scared to death, so she was stunned. Watch. Xingyun looked at the watch she was wearing, it was the cheapest thing on her body. To be honest, she was quite looking forward to it today. After holding it for so long, the scumbags are finally going to come up with a big move. Xingyun speculates that they will kidnap her no matter how they do this time, with a huge amount of extortion, disfigurement and physical abuse, and finally, another act of destruction and extermination. The worst thing is to ask where their money is stored, right? She has been showing off a lot during this period, and their family has made a lot of money. She is ready for the Jinshan location and is waiting to take them there. Is this the result of the robbery? Or rob the cheapest thing? Xingyun was too disappointed, so she reached out and took off her watch, threw it over, turned around, and left. The watch hit the crazy man's forehead, and before he fainted, he was extremely certain that it was indeed a trap. Zhu Rennan reluctantly glanced at the watch that had fallen to the ground before catching up with the Nebula. I'm scared to death, how could such a thing happen? Xingyun, I'll go home first. My parents should be anxious, she said with a frightened expression after speaking. Zhu Rennan left Xingyun and ran away, as if it wasn't her who was in a hurry to go to the small accessory store just now. Nebula ignored her and was still thinking about which link went wrong. Chenyu reminded her in real time, you have overlooked your perspective. Vision. The nebula suddenly became clear. Originally, she had heard a saying that the extreme is fashion. In fact, this statement should be that the extreme represents the fashion of money. Some things have exceeded the value of the item itself, and buyers do not need the value of the item. What they need is the value of the company's brand. Aesthetic and material value are both unnecessary. And people judge value from their own cognition. The clothes worn by Nebula during this period are very expensive, but for those who don't know them, they are just clothes and items. Xingyun doesn't know, it's the watch she's wearing that Zhu Rennan, who likes to read magazines, knows. Everyone else just thinks the watch looks good. Otherwise, even the robbery wouldn't have happened. Nebula review for a second, it was because she was not rigorous and did not consider everything thoroughly. She took out her phone from her pocket and called, "Hey, is that 110? I was robbed." When Xia's parents received the news, they were frightened and all they wanted was to see Yaya quickly. "Quick, let's go." Xia's father pulled Xia's mother and walked straight out, without changing her shoes. Summer's mother's eyes instantly turned red and she said, "Maya. At this time, I am still a butler who graduated from a professional butler school, highlighting my professional abilities." He gave a few simple instructions, and soon the servants tidied up Xia's father and mother. When they came to their senses, they were already in the car. After getting off the car, the butler led them straight and unobstructed to the Nebula. At this moment, Nebula was wearing a blanket given by a kind-hearted police officer, holding a cup of hot milk and sipping it. "Yaya." Xia's mother quickly rushed over and looked at her up and down. "Have you been injured?" Xia's father also closely watched the Nebula, observing her condition. The police officer next to them saw them speak. "Are you Xia Xingyun's parents, right?" "She's fine, she's just scared. You can sign and take her home." The nearby police officer aunt kindly said, "The child is just scared. Go home and take a nap, make more delicious food, it's okay." Xia's parents quickly responded, thanking the two police officers. The previous male police officer reminded them, "By the way, have you brought the invoice for the watch?" Upon hearing this, Xia's parents were taken aback. They were so anxious that they couldn't think of anything else. The butler standing behind approached and handed over the invoice for the watch, as well as the appraisal certificate for the watch. Returning home, Xia's father and mother comforted him well for a whole day, and in the evening, Xingyun took a beautiful beauty sleep. When he gets the item, Zhao Gu won't take it directly. They only need the account. Not long after the Nebula left, a bucket of cold water woke up the madman. "I don't know the location." "It's okay, Brother Zhao kindly provides." So he couldn't find any excuse and looked at the strong man monitoring behind him. Quanzi could only tremble and go selling things together with Zhu Rennan who ran back. They are all doing this kind of thing for the first time, very nervous, and when they return home, people are still wondering. After paying back the money, Zhu Rennan was given another share, but the madman hasn't slept for the past few days. That day, the door knocked, opened it, and looked at the people standing outside. The madman burst into tears and said, "Why did you just come?" Sigh. End of this chapter.